Good morning and welcome to Sunday School. Well, today we're going to be talking about the Exodus. Now, that word Exodus, it's the second book of the Bible, right? And that refers to really an exit. It's God's people leaving Egypt. Remember, God's people, the Israelites, were slaves in Egypt for hundreds of years. And now God, in His mercy, is going to lead them out of slavery. And He's going to use a man named Moses to do this. We talked about Moses last week. Well, now everything is coming to this climax, this point where it's very, very scary for the people of God, because in the Bible lesson that we have, what ends up happening is Moses leads the people of Israel, the Israelites, out of Egypt, and he leads them east. And where they end up is at this big sea. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever been to the ocean or you've ever been to a really, really big lake, but we're talking about a really huge body of water. We're not talking about just a swimming pool here, right? Or just a small little river. We're talking about a big sea that's miles wide and that's very deep. And the issue is God's people are now at the sea, standing on the shore of the sea, and they hear the soldiers of Pharaoh coming at them, because Pharaoh changed his mind and decided that after he let God's people go, he decided that he was going to go after them. But all of this was part of God's plan for God to show the Egyptians and to show His people, the Israelites, that He alone is God. So what happens there is that God's people panic. They are scared. Now you can understand why. I mean, think about it. If you have all of your family with you and you've got your backs to the sea, pretend that behind me is a big sea of water, and so you got nowhere to go, and you might think, well, you can swim. The thing is, most people didn't know how to swim back then. People don't know how to swim just automatically. You got to really learn and work at it. But even if you knew how to swim, we're talking about miles and miles that you'd have to swim. And then they had all of their stuff. They had sheep and, they had little kids with them. So how are you going to even try to swim? So they got their backs against this big sea of water, and now approaching them is this huge army of soldiers. And so they feel trapped. They feel like they are stuck. What do we do? And they start complaining to Moses. And they start saying, look, we wish that you would have left us alone and let us stay in Egypt, because then we wouldn't have died. They think that they're going to die. And Moses says something to them that is so important. He said, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the salvation the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again." And then he says this, "The Lord will fight for you. You only need to be still." The Lord will fight for you. All you have to do is be still. Another way to say it is to be silent. In other words, you don't have to worry. God is going to fight for you. And then in the Bible, in another place, it says, if God is for us, if He's on our side, who can be against us? I mean, think about it. if God Almighty, who made everything, is fighting for us, he's on our side, then what would we ever have to fear? And then the next thing, what happens is God tells Moses, stretch out your hand, your staff and your hand over the sea and part the sea. And by God's power, the sea is parted in two, so that there are these huge walls of water on each side, and there's this dry land, a path for the Israelites to cross this massive Red Sea. And they cross this sea. And then after they've crossed, the Egyptians come down into that dry land crossing to try to follow them. And God tells Moses, now put your hand out again and drive the waters back down over the Egyptian soldiers. And that's what Moses did. And God showed that he fights for his people. And he shows that he alone is God. And he shows also that he does not allow anyone to mess with his people and get away with it. That he fights for us. And you are his people. You are part of his people because Jesus Christ, his Son, has died for you. You have been baptized. And you belong to God. And so God fights for you. So when you feel like you're stuck, you feel like you're really worried and you don't know what there is to do, remember, God fights for you. He is on your side. So that's it for today's Sunday school opening. God's blessings to you as you learn about this amazing story.